to get him. Have my paperwork ruined again because he's out tramping the yard when he should be here to give me authority.
What's coming off around here?
Did you guys playing railroad anymore today? Did the landslide, the new cut?
Hi, welcome to Fun with HO Scale Stuff, episode 7, and this is part 2 of the Benchwork. I did purchase the Benchwork, and I believe in my last video I mentioned that it would cost around $90. No. It cost me, let's see, with taxes, $132.40. Definitely not something I would have bought with my paper route money years ago, but it's the cost of lumber is skyrocketed, and it's really hard to get quality lumber now. I did deviate from my plan a bit, and I'll explain that in a short bit, but I'm going to start this episode with a short tour. Initially, I'm going to show you what my basement area looks like in my proposed start-up first Benchwork station for the Lehigh Valley Terminal Railroad. So after I show you that, I'm going to show you my garage where the lumber is setting and show you what I actually purchased and why. I'm standing at the bottom of the stairwell that leads down into the basement, and the first thing on the right here is my electronics station. Its position's not fixed because that's the location where the first Benchwork is going to be placed. So this is going to have to find a new home. It's got my solder station, a variety of electronics products and helpful pieces of equipment that I use to do the electronics work. This is a folding table. It's actually got my tools and a variety of other things that supported my software development that I was doing. I normally place my computer here, and then I tie into the software ties into these Arduino systems that I'm working on. And I mentioned previously that I was building a DCC monitor, and that was what this guy is. And it's an Arduino Uno. And then I've got another project here, which is a throttle that I intend to play around with in order to actually control DCC signals on the tracks. Right now, as far as working on the monitor goes, I've been using the NCE cab in order to produce the DCC signals that I'm actually tracking. Then I've got some shelving that, with just storage. And over here, this area is where I've done the largest portion of my YouTube channel recording. And I've got this nice, my wife bought that for me quite a few years ago. I was using it for modeling plastic models, and also for electronics. This was really quite handy. The rest of the area here in this close quarter is this little platform I set up where I've been doing some drafting and sketching, but it's a drafting board. Well, actually, right now it's not. The board's been placed over there, but it's just a large sketch pad. It's got a grid on it, so I can do some scale research. One of the things I was trying to figure out is where could I place the buildings on a 2-foot by 8-foot platform for a service facility, which I think I've shown this before here. This was one of the images that I was analyzing to try to dredge out the minutiae of what is required to have a service facility for both a diesel surface and a steam service. It was a transition type year that I'm shooting for. So we'll see how that goes, because that's going to be the first project is a service facility. So the other thing I wanted to point out too while I'm down here is that the ceiling came with pocket lights. And what I've done is I've converted those over to these LED lights, which actually light the area up very well. I'm not finished with the lighting, but as you know, anyone who's done model railroading knows that the lighting becomes fairly critical for the enjoyment of the model. So that part of it is underway. And I've got some nice open space in here for expansion. And even back in this region, there's room back in here for expansion of the eventual railroad. So the Lehigh Valley Terminal Railroad will have lots of room. This is another storage area I have for storing some of the items that I dug out of storage. A lot of this stuff hadn't touched it in years, so it's kind of an interesting thing to get it out now and actually start using it. So that's pretty much it for the basement. The next stop in this tour is the garage, and once we reach the garage, I'll show you the lumber that I purchased and how I plan on using it and why. Well, welcome to my garage. This is where I unloaded the lumber at, and this piece, there are two pieces here. This and the other half of it was a 4x8 sheet of plywood. So that is going to be the surface of the benchwork. And I got over here, I've set it up already to cut it, but these are not the these are not the 2x2s that I had planned on getting. Each of these, this one and this one would actually constitute a 2x2, but I had to get a 1x2. They had 2x2s at the hardware store, but they were in awful condition, and there's no way I was going to buy those. And these are really nice. They're finished lumber and they're straight. So yeah, this is going to be I'm going to just bond them together and they'll become 2x2s. But when I combine them, like instead of doing it the way it's shown here, I could just sand the surfaces and then put some wood glue and clamp on, and bada bing, I've got 2x2s. But I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do it this way. And this is something I was picking up on about this term called strongbacks. I don't know that much about carpentry, but I figure if I put the two boards and join them this way, there's going to be less likelihood of them warping, and I think they'll be stronger, those AKA strongbacks. But the thing I'm thinking about is at the end of the board is I can't attach a leveler to that now, because, well, it's either too narrow or there's not enough meat to put one from the bottom in. So I'll have to figure out something to do with maybe I'll attach another piece of lumber at the bottom of each leg and then drill into the combined thing to be able to put the levelers in. Or I just won't add levelers if I don't need them. Like, first cut it, assemble it, and then see if I need levelers, and I can solve that later. So there's those. And then over here, these are what I was going to get were 1x4s. These are 1x3s. And I think I mentioned that an alternate was a 1x3. The cost of the 1x4 was so much more than the 1x3s in total. That I had to get 9 of them. I actually got a price break by buying 10, so there's actually 10 of them sitting there. And even at that, you heard what I said. It was over $110. It was like for just this lumber and an adhesive that I bought and this foam. I got sorry about shaking around, but here I bought this piece of foam, and this is going to be, it's an inch and a half foam this way, and 4x8. So I'm gonna have to score it down the middle and snap it. But this will be on top. Looks like the forklift got a hold of it here, but that's foam. It's going to be fine, and it's nice and firm. So yeah, that was the load. Well, that was I unloaded in here. So the first part of this project is for me to cut these 1x2s to the 4-foot lengths that I desire. And in order to do that, I've set them up on these supports. I use this table here and press them against the wall over there so that they're all aligned on the bottom. And I'll measure the 4-foot length. You don't have to be a perfect, we're not making furniture, so it's just got to be 4 foot is good enough right there, that measurement. So I got a 4-foot measurement here. And then I like to transfer that across the boards. So again, it's not necessarily perfect. I can eyeball this to be pretty much right across, and I'll just draw my line. So that's where I want to cut it. Trusty tape measure goes on here. And then what I did was, I got a couple of shims, and I'm going to put the shims on either side of this where I plan on making the cut. And get them back up tight. And then I'm going to clamp these shims onto the boards to hold them in place. Whoops, I think I caught myself here. And like I said before, I'm not a carpenter. I'm not a woodworker dude. I use what I have on hand, and I do it. Okay. I improvised this a bit, but okay, that's holding those nice and firm, and the line is straight. So the next thing I want to do is give that a cut. We're going to check one thing. They always say that you should measure twice and cut once. So, that's where we're at. The clamp is helpful. Okay, the line is a lot nicer. I can cut that without too much concern. So I'm still square up against the wall. I got a nice line now. I'm clamped so that the boards are cut evenly. So the next thing I want to do is, cut straight through. So I got a trusty crosscut saw, and so I could use this to make a cut. But I also have a power saw, but neither of them guarantee that I'm going to cut this straight. Like there could always be some angle or something. So initially, what I can do is put the square on here and square my blade, so I get a visual of what the square is. And then I like to do a couple of draws on that line just to get it started, because otherwise it'll slide back and forth, and it won't actually make the cut properly. Now the thing that we want to do here, I don't want it falling in, because then it'll split the wood. So I got to be careful about that and support it with my hand. But this is a cross-cut saw, and it's ideal for cutting across the grain. So we'll get that to do its job. And you don't need, with a saw, you don't need to press and push. The saw is made to do the cutting. It's a tool, and to use it, you just have to keep it aligned. and let that saw do the job. Hopefully we'll get a nice straight square cut. I know I'm flexing it a little bit. I'm not going to do that. So I'm not going to bore you with the whole process of cutting this. But, you know, for you at home that you don't have a lot of power tools or something, you have one of these, if your dad has one of these, they'll work great. You know, just watch that. So I'm going to cut this off and I'll get back to you when I got it done. So I wanted to show you the result of the cut. And, you know, just so you feel good about your own cuts, this is pretty nasty. I got like some splintering when it came apart. And you know, there's splintering on this. And if you look straight down on it, you can see that this the cut actually went on an angle. Even though I tried to true my blade, it's still cut on an angle. You know, so you know, if you have a power saw that, you know, is a jig kind of where it can be lowered onto your work and you know, set up for a perfect cut, that's ideal. But like I said, well, I'm not making furniture, so I don't really care about this. I'm going to clean that off with another smaller saw, and it'll be just fine. I mean, I got you know, it's basically 4 foot. I'll even them up so that they're the same length, but I'll transfer the length of these boards to the remaining boards that I have to trim those to 4 foot length as well. So feel good about yourself. You see what I've done, and you know, anybody probably could do better. I'm no carpenter, that's for sure. So here's what I meant by transferring the cut. You see that when you buy an 8 foot length piece of wood, it's never 8 foot. It's always some other dimension, typically a little bit longer. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this little T, this right angle, and I'm going to take this square, and I'm going to, you know, set it so it's on the edge of this cut, and I'll try to get these cuts squared up with the wall. And so that's less less error that I introduce into this cut that I'm going to make. And okay, so I'll get that on there, and I'm going to make a mark. And ideally, well, it's a little high. I'll bring it back. And there. Okay, so there's a line. Whoops! As soon as I budged it, as soon as you know, cant it at all, the lines don't line up. You really want to try to keep them square. So I'm going to do what I did before. I'm going to shim the end of this to keep it, you know, tight and true. I'll true it up as best I can, and then I'm just going to slice over it, and we'll wind up with 4 pieces of 1x2. And I can construct the legs that I suggested earlier is going to be done in a style of a strong back. You know, we'll do something like that. Okay, I'll be back. So what I'm finally left with is 8 pieces of wood for the 1x2s that are all essentially the same length. So I've got them lined up on this side right here. I'll keep that lined up. And here's my cuts. And you can see, well, there's that flub with that nasty little lump, but they look okay to me. I think I can make legs out of that. So the next step in the process is to actually make the legs. And then we'll think about adding something that I can install levelers. I'll show you a leveler of what I mean in this video. So there's 2 things that I've done here. One of them is I brought the wood in from out in the garage because it was just plain too cold out there. And the second thing I did was I had 2 separate cuts of wood. And what I did was I took a piece from each of the separate cuts and combined them to make one leg. And by doing that, what I'm doing is I'm averaging my error. So, there may be slight differences, but they both have fairly good edges on one side. So I'm using the fact that they have these nice flush square edges there, and then I can combine them down here. And that irregular shape's fine. I may have need eventually to put a block on here. I hope you're seeing this. I may eventually have a need to put a block on here in order to install a leveler. So this is a leveler that I'm calling an insert leveler. It requires that you drill a hole, you can thread it into the cap part, which it will extend the shaft portion of the foot up into the hole you drilled. So the hole you drill has to be long enough and it has to be wide enough for this shaft, which is just under a ½ inch. They have proper dimensions on the actual drawings for this thing, but just wanted to show you this. And this would be possible only if you can see you have to drill a ½ inch hole. So it would only be possible if you had about a 1 by 1 inch square surface area to drill into. Otherwise, I don't believe you'd have enough holding wood to support the shaft. And so it is actually possible to use that on a 1 by 2. It would still be kind of flimsy, and I don't think, I haven't ruled it out, but I don't think that would be the proper means to actually create a leveler. Now this one is called a corner, the second one is called a corner leveler, and this one is kind of interesting because it mounts in a way that would butt it up against the manner in which I propose making my legs. There will be like a corner, an inside corner of the legs. However, you see that the dimension on the right hand side at the very top says it's 1.2 inches. That means that both of these sides, corner sides, are 1.2 inches. On one side of the 1 by 2s, because the 1 by 2 is actually butted up against the other one, the inside corner doesn't really have enough space to accommodate one half of this to be able to mount it. So this one can't be used. This is the third one of the type of levelers. I call this a bottom leveler. That I call it that because you see at the very bottom of the leveler, there's a 90-degree angle, and then there's like a 1.5 centimeter extension at a right angle to the leveler bracket, which would mount to the underside of the board. And 1.5, it's just over a ½ inch. And quite frankly, this one would be my best bet to use if I need levelers, because I've got, every board is at least 1 inch thick. So having this ½ inch would put the screw hole at about a 1/4 inch in away from the edge of the wood. So that's fine. I mean, besides which there's holes for mounting on the vertical plate as well. And then you simply take with that shaft that's extending down to the foot of the leveler, that just simply screws down and gives you the leveling action that's required. So that's my favorite, and I think that's what I'll go with if I need them. Okay, well, an unexpected turn of events has occurred. I'm completely dependent on this particular computer right now, because it's where I do all of my YouTube video editing. I do my software development with the developmental systems that I've got installed to support all of that activity. And it's not working right now because there's a, I'll show you this. There's a charge connector on the side of the computer. And I have 2 different chargers, and neither of them will sit in this connector properly. And obviously the connector is not working. So I have 2 choices. I can either repair this computer or buy a new one. And then I'd have to reinstall all of that support software that I've got currently on this computer. So I've taken the decision of I'm going to try to fix it. And if I brick the computer, then I'll buy a new one and go through the trouble of reinstalling everything. But in the meantime, I'm going to give this a shot to see what I can do. Well, I'm going to wrap up this episode 7. It's obvious from the fact that I'm able to do this that I've somehow restored my YouTube editing capability. My video editing system is back up. So how I did that, I'll explain in the next episode, episode 8. That'll be part 3 of the Benchwork build. And unexpectedly, it will be part 2 of the PC repair series too. I didn't intend to do it, but things break, and we gotta just soldier on. That's just the way to go. That said, I'd like to ask you, if you would, please return for the next episode, and if you are feeling especially kind, leave me a like, and you might even subscribe to Fun with HO Scale Stuff. I appreciate anybody watching, and I also would really like to hear anybody's feedback, comments, and suggestions. I might be doing this really badly, and anything you might suggest could help improve the channel. So thank you very much again for watching, and have a great day. We'll talk to you later.